The way that Christians, for example, and it's just one example, have treated our LGBTQ plus friends and family members and neighbors has often looked more like the enemies of Jesus who picked up stones to throw than it does the way of Jesus who offered living water to drink. That's the point. Church people have not always looked like Jesus in this. But that's a problem with church people, not with Jesus. And it's important that you hear that. Look, following Jesus is not about good people telling bad people to try to be better. That's right. It's for people who know we don't always look like Jesus, asking him to transform us because we've come to believe that his design for life really is the very best way to live. But that's where we have to start this topic. As followers of Jesus, we have to start with a conversation about design. When it comes to the world where we live, that's not always the starting point, and it's important to recognize that. It's important to know that. In fact, we tend in our world to think about it this way. We start with morality and what's right and wrong, and then we move from morality to a conversation about anthropology, what it looks like to be human, and from there we move to theology, what we believe about God. Not just about sex and sexuality. We start that way about anything, especially when it comes to sex and sexuality. We start with, what do I believe is right or wrong? And we tend to start with our gut or our conscience. What do I feel like is the right or wrong way to live? And from there, we begin to test out those theories by looking at the people around us. We go to anthropology. The people in our life that we generally believe are good people and what they think is right and wrong. And we put those two together. And then we build a theology off of that. Who must God be? Who do we want God to be in light of what we believe is right or wrong and people generally around us believe it looks like to be human, even good people around us? Then we move to what is God like? But the Bible always moves in the opposite direction. The Bible starts with theology, and from theology moves to anthropology, and from anthropology moves to morality. Starts with the designer. Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. The very first verse of the Bible says, in the beginning, God. Starts with theology, who God is and what he's like. And from there, isn't it true, in anything, the designer gets to be the definer. So I have a really great friend that's a professional artist. She just does incredible, incredible work. Imagine me going to one of her shows and hearing her at her display, looking at one of the paintings and explaining it. This is a work that's designed to evoke emotion of a holiday at the beach. And calm in a deep internal sense, even in the presence of vast eternal space. Imagine her describing her design and then me responding to her description of her design. That's not what that is at all. The designer gets to be the definer. And even more, some of you are engineers who design aircraft for a living. Isn't it true that the designer often, if not always, knows the limits of the design better than anybody else? That's why the user manual for any kind of a valuable object that you have always has a few pages of caution. Essentially saying, you may find yourself wanting to do this along the way, but don't. It's not good for you, or it's not good for the thing that's been designed. It's not what it's designed for. We together? Okay, so right off the beginning, right off the bat, before we even get off the first page of the Bible, that's the order that God invites us to think. Start with who God is. Allow the designer to define what he's designed. What does it mean to be human? And from there to set the parameters on that for how life works best, how it's designed to function.